Oh, no hat. That's very slick. That is.
Those are only for you. Only for you. Only for your show.
I'm not sure I class it as a show. I
It's
class
quite the
it.
show.
I don't quite have the Hollywood image that you have. Hey, I thought you were gonna come on here cheating with the
With the flat bill?
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so that's how you know you have really good hair is actually you could be wearing this hat all day, which I have been, and you can take it off and a hat wouldn't dare mess with it. So, yeah.
I I thought he's gonna be cheating tonight and he's gonna have a hat. He's gonna turn up, with like I said, the Hollywood image. I've been
So
waiting for this all week.
with all the guests that you've had, I doubt highly that you've been waiting for me this whole week. But you, sir, were one of the people responsible when I first went over to London to speak at the COP summit. You got my hair trending on Twitter, I believe.
I'm pretty sure that your hair and my hair have got nothing in common.
it,
Mine's more falling out than anything.
so I'm always asked, they're like, again, you guys over there, Richie, Mark Day, all you guys that I love so much. You were always, and Mark Day's got a hell of a head of hair on him too, by the way. But you're always like, you got the best hair in golf instruction. And now, if you notice, Richard Lee has joined golf instruction. Have you
Oh,
seen that? The former
no,
tour
no.
player. I put him on a body track a long time ago. He's doing short game instruction, and I messaged him and I told him, I don't appreciate his hair being on. Yeah, I think he's
I,
passed me in the world
I knew you,
rankings.
I knew you weren't going to say Richard Hughes's hair.
Yeah, well.
If he's on here now, he's going to kill me.
What's that you're drinking?
um, Coke.
Oh, okay.
What
All
do you think
right.
it was?
I thought it was something better than Coke, man.
So it very well to get us through this.
Okay.
Anyway, Mr. Como and everybody else has had a bottle of green water. What's in your can?
You know what? I did have a green drink when I did Richie's IG Monday, and I didn't like the image I was portraying there. This healthy. I mean, that's not me. That's not authentic. So we have some anti-hero right there,
Oh,
which
oh
which
my goodness.
sums me up. This is it's a microbrewery right here. It's an IPA. It's delicious.
Well, you might need that.
Well, I knew who I was going on with, so it's only 2 o'clock here, but
Oh well, we got plenty of time then. We can
right.
put the wheels to rights. Hey, I want to get you on and have a chat with you because to me you're the one person who's took the technology side out there to the masses.
Yeah, yeah,
Taking whether it be body track, 3D, and really used it with the masses of players and taught people about how to use it. You know.
right. So my thinking on that, one was so there's an old quote from Harvey Penick that went, and as you know, I have the greatest respect in the world for the previous generation of instructors. I'm really bummed on the ones that I missed out on and stuff like that. I mean, there's 150 years of golf instruction. You go all the way back to Percy Boomer, right? So, and even before that. So I have such a great respect. I am never the guy that goes, aha, you got that wrong. Look how, effing smart I am. I'm always pointing out the genius of previous generations. So, anyways, there's a quote from Harvey Penick that I love, and then I put my own little twist on it. So, Harvey said, I learned to play from players. I learned to teach from teachers. And then my twist on that, I've learned the technical from technology. I drove back and forth in a Nissan Altima. Any teacher, and when I did it, there was internet, but probably the guys that I would go observe, watch, shadow, clean up their range, probably, I don't know if they were checking email yet. So I wrote letters out of college. And if they wouldn't let me watch them, I would take a lesson from them. And I'd offer to pay. I didn't even have any money, but, to me, knowledge was my reward. So, again, a lot of them did not use technology. But to go back to that Harvey Penick quote, I learned to teach from teachers. That's what I learned. I learned that the guys that were doing the best were master communicators. John Jacobs is somebody I was never around. I'm really bummed about that. So I love hearing from Adrian Fryer, who spent some time with Kevin Flynn, who spent some time. I'm sure you were around him as he's your fellow countryman before he passed. And I love the previous generation of instructors. So the only issue I had was I had reached a point where I wanted to eliminate opinion from the premise. And that being, and the main opinion on that being my own. I wanted to eliminate myself from this process with players. So I totally embrace technology. I'm a Gen X guy. I turned 41, which I guess according to Golf Digest, I'm not young anymore. But
is that wig? Is it wig?
No, hell no. No, that's all me, man. So I got some quarantine lettuce back there. I wanted to get away from opinions, especially my own. I was open to seeing anything, whatever the technology would tell us. And then, so I was on board with all of it, even though some of my former mentors were not. I hope I never become that way. And then what I realized and this is what enters into the speaking, the posts, so on and so forth. I really saw a need in the industry for practical application of data. In other words, I was getting hit with a lot of, well, that's cool. Like, whatever, pressure traces, 3D, whatever. That's really cool, Jake. But what do I do with it? And these companies saw that as, well, if they don't know what to do with it, they're not going to buy it. So I've never been an employee of a company. I'm an instructor. I run my golf academies at a few different locations in Chicago, and travel around with touring pros at times too. But the technology, to me, I said this earlier in the week, the problem with amateur golfers is that they don't know what the problem is. And we're so often, now I mentioned John Jacobs before, and again, all due love and respect, and keep in mind, he was doing like a clinic, right? So this is, a lot of the great generation of Toski, all these guys, Jimmy Ballard, who I spent a ton of time with, they had these big personalities. They were kind of a show. So Jacobs was that. So he would have his back to the client and listen for the ball and then instruct him what to do, right? So as much as I appreciate the showman, I'm always of the opinion I can't learn enough about you. And some teachers would go after 2 swings, oh, I got it. I know what you do. This is what you should do. The first time meeting someone, I always tell them, you know what, I'll give you a little something, but you cannot leave this lesson without knowing what you currently do. Like, it's non-negotiable. It's 2020. We know exactly why the ball flies the way it does. You need to know that. Otherwise, if you don't, our premise is faulty, or our diagnosis is incorrect, so thus the treatment cannot help you. So so that's been it's you know what, it's been born of fire. I just trust me, I was no kind of good player, right? It's not like, oh, if I would have figured this out, I'd have been on tour. I was not going to be on the PGA Tour. Um, but I was also keenly aware that certain advice was good for certain people. And I was also aware that it was, Mike Adams has a great line, what's magic for one can be tragic for another. I wanted to figure out why. I wanted to connect the puzzle pieces. And so to me, whatever's coming down, and I got some ideas on the next wave of technology, but whatever's coming down the pipe, just so you know, I don't want to say I'm leading the charge, but I'll be first in line. I'm very curious what everything can teach me to help players, but there's language that you and I are going to use today because mostly instructors, I think, are watching this. And then that language I wouldn't use with anybody, right? So,
Yeah. But I mean, you look at it and everything's got a value then, hasn't it? Everything's
yes,
got a value. And, if it was that the members of the club, the golf club, see the technology, it could help them. It could help them understand what they're doing, right? If you get the diagnosis wrong for any reason, they're still going to live tomorrow. They're still going to play the game tomorrow, right?
right,
If you then go higher up the tree, you'll have a kid who wants to play, for his career. But you have someone who's playing on tour who wants to make more money, right? Now that the decision on what to change has got a lot more consequence if you get it wrong.
correct.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I've
and
always thought myself, right, and this goes back to when I spent time on the European tour with a lad called Tom Whitehouse. We always said from day one, let's not guess if we can actually prove it. Because
right.
an opinion can be dangerous. A fact we can adjust or change, or you know what I mean? So that we can make sure the decisions we make at that moment in time do not throw a career out the window.
Yeah, I teach a cardiologist. I actually teach quite a few doctors, and we'll probably get to that, kind of how it's in my mind. But I teach a cardiologist who had lessons from a teacher of note, and I'm not going to say who that is, but he referenced to me that he has a heck of a set of eyes. And I go, well, you're a cardiologist, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, how long? And he goes, 30 years. And I go, I'm going to need the EKG. Okay.
Yeah.
I trust your opinion. I trust your experiential knowledge in dealing with matters of the heart. But I'm still going to need the EKG. Sorry. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to someone who will. So, what's lost in all this as tech gets a bad rap? There's other teachers of note that said, I've got two TrackMan each eye, right? And it's interesting. One of those eyes is like lazy, so I don't. But anyways, that's what they say. Sorry, that's what they say, and that's fine. But they're saying it in a way like it dulls the senses of this next generation of instructors. I'm going to ask you a question, and I've never asked you this before, and I think I know the answer, right? So when you're on TrackMan or something, and your client hits the shot, there's a delay for the numbers to come up. Don't you try to predict the future every single time? Even verbally or even in your own mind? I bet you the path was this, the face was that.
I'm one of them people who I would actually model a swing to what suits and then measure the result in a way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go, right, well, you're 2 degrees over there, so you need to go 2 degrees over there. I'm more a person who likes to use it as a performance measurement at any time to see where we are along that spectrum. But I think you're dead right. You'd probably know what it said before it came on. And he knows everything.
Well, and what is that? So again, we're lazy, and we've been our teaching moxie has been softened through the use of technology, and I get it. Like Sister Jean in Catholic school would tell me, don't be using that calculator. You can't think for yourself, right? Well, what if I were to tell you that any teacher that uses technology, that plays this game all the time, and I don't care if it's TrackMan, I don't care if it's Hack Motion, I don't care if it's Body Track, I don't care if it's a 3D bodysuit, okay? If you tried to predict the future, right? And I'm not Miss Cleo here. Do you guys have Miss Cleo? She's like a psychic on a call me now for your free reading. So anyways, if I tried to predict what I just saw, and I'm within a degree and a half, 2 degrees, how is that not making me sharper as a teacher? And the learning from technology, all of this has always been present since Mary Queen of Scots when they played the damn game. But our awareness of this, right? So even if you don't have tech at all, that's fine. But you should learn from somebody that has learned from tech so you understand the principles. I'm not here to tell you that sitting on the 7-iron and just saying, and just being there with them is a bad thing. I'm not. I'm just saying it's not for me, So I would rather say this is what you're doing. I'm not here to fix you. I've seen people that have struggled with this before, and this is the route that we took. And if you're talking about a tour player, the ability to quantify what it is that they currently do and where they want to be only strengthens the message. Remember what I said about teachers at the beginning. Master communicators, the ones with zero technology, were master communicators. How do I know this? Because any change, even if you're at the highest level, feels awkward because it is different, right? That's how the motor cortex is processing this. Sameness, difference. So it has to be different. So when they had, and I think about the Marco Mira with Hank Haney when he was the U.S. Amateur champ, and Haney had him topping the ball. Now, I don't know if I would have done that. But anyways, he had him topping the ball right in front of him. But how strong was the belief level by O'Meara to continue to listen to a guy that has the U.S. Amateur champ topping the ball on the range, right? Master communicators. To make someone, to bring about change, right, with the spoken word, internal, external cues, so on and so forth, especially at that level, right? I think that's what actually we should have learned from the great instructors of the previous time. And then after that, they had wonderful ideas, some are which proven, some are which are disproven, but it just gives us more arrows in the quiver to throw at students, right? And people ask me all the time, how'd you get so good on Body Track, right? And I told them, well, I was an original customer. I took it down in the basement, and I did every single drill that a teacher had given me or I had heard of, read anything, and saw what it did and why, one, I hated it, but two, it worked for other people, and vice versa, and why I love that drill and why that worked for me. So I guess we could call that experimentation. The only problem I see is there's a lot of teachers that are experimenting on live subjects. So I think we have to be quick to learn but slow to apply. Unless you're going to do that on your own golf game, which I have no golf game, so it's all good. I don't even care, right? I don't even know where my clubs are, right?
But I mean, you go back probably 5 years. No one even. I mean, we used pressure plates probably 10, 15 years ago, and we were looking at tracers and things. But before it was sort of a mass product that's everywhere, and the belief then was that how the feet interacted with the ground, was going to be massive relative to power and accuracy. And we'd have done exercises on the pressure plates. We had players doing squats and things on them, as well as the golf swing, to try and find an imbalance or an issue through exercise and through play. And that was 10, 15 years ago. So modern technology now, going from just pure pressure to now vectors going upwards, and I mean, it's right. That can then be a minefield if you're not properly equipped to understand what you're looking at.
100%. And, there's nothing new under the sun. We're just becoming more aware. And you're right. This has been around for 10, 15 years, and it was being used in the Olympics. Okay. So it was being used for other sports. There was people out there like Terry Hashimoto who saw the application to golf. One, because he was involved with a medical company that created the body track, and two, he played golf at Miami for the Hurricanes. And by the way, don't get in a money game with him. I mean, holy smokes. But anyways, so this came from like wheelchair covers. The technology or the fabric came from wheelchair covers, and it came from beds in a hospital with people who were bedridden that would develop like sores and stuff, bed sores from being bedridden. So they also use it in the helmets for American football. For concussion protocols, to study the effects that collision has on the brain. So the golf aspect of these pressure mats, force plates, and all that is still, I guess, relatively new, but the technology actually wasn't created necessarily for golf. It just eventually comes there where someone like Hash goes, actually, I'm seeing this data and I see a golf swing, right?
Yeah. So at what point then did you take it out on tour?
Yeah. Okay. So I get this question a lot, and I got to give credit. And I know he's ducking you, and he's in the middle of he's hiking. So
you better tell him when he comes down from that mountain.
Yeah. So the person that got me involved in pressure mapping was Sean Foley. Okay, and Foley, I just talked to him last week. And I knew Sean when he was coaching Stephen Ames. All right. So I guess long story here. My roommate that I was living with in Florida, early 2000s, 2006, something like that, 2005. So I was living with him. He was the Canadian National Long Drive champ, and he was the Canadian Tour School medalist, right? And he would listen to me talk, which I always was amazed that a guy that was that talented, right? I mean, he had played with me. I was like a tackling dummy, right? So, but he would listen to everything I had to say about a golf swing, and then he goes, "You know who you sound like?" And he goes, "He's only a couple years older than you." He goes, "He's a young instructor. His name's Sean Foley. He's in Orlando. We were in Tampa Bay." And I said, cool, I'd love to talk to him. And they're like, he just started working with Stephen Ames, who also Canadian, all that stuff. I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I think I've heard of his name. So anyways, I developed a relationship with Sean. So fast forward to the 2014 British Open at Hoy Lake. Rory won. It was that one, pretty much running away and hiding. So Sean and I had lunch. I made a comment. I believe, if I have my dates straight, I think Marion was the year before for Justin Rose's U.S. Open. I think it was 2013. I know it was before Hoy Lake. So I asked Sean, I just noticed something in his statistics. And I said, I made a comment like, your boy's a unicorn, right? And he goes, what are you talking about? And I go, he's put 10 yards of accurate distance on. I looked at his statistics. I go, he's put 10 yards of accurate distance on. In other words, he was 10 yards longer and actually was as straight, if not straighter, right? And you're told, well, if you hit it further, you just have to be less accurate. And I go, what do you attribute that to? Now, he could have said, me, bro, because I'm so effing smart, right? Right? He could have said anything. He could have said fitness. He could have said whatever he want. Track. He could say, and he said, and it was a different company. It was Swing Catalyst. He had gotten a Swing Cat, and he said it was the work that he had done with that. That's what he attributed to at that time. And I said, "Oh,
is it purely measuring right foot, left foot, and combined pressure?"
Yeah, back then, right? The original wasn't necessarily doing horizontal and all that, like the one that Again, great product. I don't have a permanent structure. So Gears is another one. Great product. Love it. But for me, I'm always on the go, and I'm like the traveling one-man van here. So, but that original one, yeah, it was just measuring vertical pressure.
Yeah.
So what he noticed really quickly, or actually, not that he was selling it to me, but the sell for me on, oh my gosh, I have to learn more about this, was that he saw on camera, and that's all when we were sporting the Manny pack, right,
Yeah.
with your camera in there and the Nature's Best bars, right? He said the thing that sold him on it was on camera he couldn't detect a difference, but in terms of what he did, in terms of the interaction with the ground, it had completely changed, and obviously so thus did the 3D launch. So that brought me back to almost when I started watching golf lessons as a kid. I thought it was like a damn magic show. Like a guy could say something and change the ball flight, right? I was fascinated with that. And so thus when Foley told me that, I was fascinated with that too. I go, so you can't see a change, and yet he's changed everything, and the results speak for themselves. I'm in. So I wanted to learn everything I could. I had no idea that they were coming out with a portable solution. And at that point, I probably couldn't have afforded myself a swing cat. So I thought to myself, and this goes for any instructor out there that's like, that's on a budget, which, by the way, I own all my own stuff. I do. If I leave this property, then it's all coming with me. I thought, I didn't think, I guess if I would have had some foresight, I would have saw that there would have been a portable solution someday. But I wasn't thinking that way. I'm like, I have to understand these concepts. I have to understand what I'm looking at, the invisible, so to speak. And it brings you back to how technology actually sharpens you. After using a body track now for, golly, 8 years, something like that, 7 years, so on and so forth. I try to predict what I see in the ground, and I can't do it to the percentage. I can't do it to the data point, but I try to do it generally like that player is here at this point, and he's here at this point, and probably the overwhelming majority of the pressure is. And what that's done is made me about 80 to 85% accurate, which means I'm 20 to 15% shit. So it's best to switch my mic off a little bit, measure it, and know for sure, instead of saying, oh, you know what you do. So I only got involved with ground force reaction to understand the concept. I never actually, and again, if I would have thought about it, I'm sure I would have realized that there would have been a portable alternative. But I wasn't thinking that way. DeChambeau said something interesting, and I've been around DeChambeau. Obviously, everybody knows Mike Schy coaches him. Como assists with him. I was brought in.
That's an amazing transformation.
Oh,
I mean,
go back to U.S. Amateur. Go back to find the videos on Schy's Instagram account of when he was 15 or 16. It'll look pretty much like a standard issue golf swing, right?
Yeah, I mean, but when he came out on tour with this, all the clubs the same length, golfing machine, up and down, completely different.
Yeah, minimal displacement of the shaft in transition. I was privy to his pressure trace initially. It's completely different now, obviously. But something that
why is it completely different? You move more pressure,
yes, distance.
He's got more pressure to move now because
yes,
I mean the size of him. I mean, I don't know how much muscle mass he's actually put on.
Yeah,
I mean? But he's shifting 130 mile an hour club head speed now.
I mean, he was on Instagram last night going 203 ball speed. I mean, come on. That COP summit, that initial one that Scott Fawcett was teaching at, who spent a lot of time with DeChambeau. and then I'll get to his quote. But Scott, I asked Scott back then, and again, that's a few years ago. I asked him what kind of tour player he thought Bryson would be, because we had played. I didn't play. I was coaching someone that had played with him in a practice round, and he goes, he's going to be a good player. He's going to get some wins, but he thought he hit his longer clubs too low to hold the greens on the PGA Tour. So he thought he was going to be a really solid player. Bryson's probably one of those people. If you say he can't do something, he'll show you that he can. And then the interesting thing is this. He's the only player that I've ever heard say this, because most of the players that I've been around, if it doesn't work, it's like, that's not for me, bro, right? With Bryson, they always go, or his comment was, if I'm currently struggling, what I'm struggling with is total understanding. So he actually doesn't blame what he trains. He blames the understanding thereof. In other words, there's a great quote. I don't know if you guys got this show, Arrested Development, out there. It's my favorite friggin' show ever. It's on Netflix. There's a character, it's a character named Job on it, Will Arnett, and he goes, I hear the jury's still out on science. So I say that all the time with people that like rip me for technology. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm sure the jury's still out on science. And they always go, well, yeah, but they have one study until they have another study. I go, yeah, but it wasn't science that was wrong. It was our understanding of science that was. And if you're an instructor, you have to be going down that road, in my opinion, right? It's okay if it's proven wrong. Yeah.
Every instructor I spoke to this week, last week, all use it. All use it.
Yeah.
Even Claude said, we have pressure play. We have, that. Obviously, Chris Como, he has everything.
And I helped Claude. I don't think he was I think he was just in town. I helped Claude with Alex Noren. When Body Check was very new, Noren was interested in that. Again, this is more, I think Tiger brought this into the stratosphere here, the consultant. Again, he hopped on one. He goes to Claude, what do you think? And Claude goes, I think we should contact Jake real quick. And so, which is one of the, golly, I mean, I watched Claude live when you had him on, and it's one, he's in the Hall of Fame with me. One, for that moment, and two, he spoke in my section, and I was down at Whisper Rock in Arizona. I'm in Chicago. He spoke in my section, and he got up there and told everybody in my section. Imagine this, because by the way, you can be nationally recognized, and everyone around you thinks you don't know shit. Okay, so the guy down the street goes, "Yeah, that guy doesn't know anything." So he told all the guys down the street that, Jake's doing some really interesting stuff. You should really pay attention to him and all that kind of stuff. My phone starts blowing up like, hey, CH3 just said that you actually know what the hell you're talking about. And I'm sitting there going, and you needed him to tell you? I've been telling you that for years. So, but anyways, just consulting work on this stuff. I think that's where, I have the utmost respect from and the majority of the credit of any success of the tour player probably belongs more to the junior coach than anything. But coaching in the modern age with technology means consulting work, where they're going to bring you in as an expert on certain technology. So, do I say that I coach them? No. Sometimes I don't know what to say. Sometimes I don't know how much of their performance is really my doing, good or bad. So, but that's coaching in the modern era. And people go, well, how have you worked with all these guys? And I go, well, I've become known as pretty good on this. And instead of their teacher trying to learn via certification, and I'm not knocking that. I've been privy to that. I have certifications of my own, and if that's what you have in which to learn, my certification, I told you, was driving a Nissan Altima into the ground. That was my certification, right? School of hard knocks, as they say. But if that's what you got, that's what you got, and that's what you should do. And there's great certifications out there. But the thing is, probably the inventor or the guy who's doing practical application is brought in as an expert for that. So, and I don't always post that because, it's like, what do they call it? Like getting Facebook fucked, it's like your ex-girlfriend is with some other dude, and you're sitting there going like, hey, we only broke up 3 days ago, and it was via text, and like, what are you doing out with him? And so I just, if you see me post a player, that player and I have had a conversation, and they're cool with it. And if they do have a coach, I've had a conversation with them, and they're cool with it. If not, I don't post anything except my kids, and I'm totally cool with it. I am happy with the relationship I have with coaches because they know I'm not there to steal. There is I got great advice from a guy, again, a countryman of yours. I don't know why I learned from you frickin' Brits, but I do. Darren May. You obviously am familiar with Darren, right? He did the EBC. He was the director of instruction out at Bears Club. He's coached many tour players. He does zero social media intentionally, and he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And he told me, he goes, when I first was out there, he goes, Jake, you can't coach them all, so don't even try. And I've heard this said on your channel before. I'm a fan of guys I'll never coach. And it's kind of like when I hear that my wife is so cool, I always like, yeah, why don't you try being married to her, right? So there's a lot of players out there that I love, but I love them because I haven't coached them. So,
so how many players have you got now?
Oh, God. Again, such a hard question to answer, right? Because if a guy sends you something, takes a look at it, it's a difficult question to answer, and I found myself kind of moving away from that a little bit. I will say this: I am traveling. Well, not at all right now because we're all social distancing, but I am traveling a lot less because I have a young family, and perspective to me is the ultimate power. So my kids don't care at all. They saw me on a commercial for Wilson, and so they're kind of aware of that. But I told them I was going live with you, and my oldest said, "Is that the guy? I can't understand what he's saying." And I go, "I know." It's like when I was down in Liverpool. I had no chance. They were like, and I'm not even going to try to do the accent, but it was like that scene in Billy Madison. It's like, and Adam Sandler's like, slow down. And they go, and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know if they were ripping me, asking me for directions. I don't know what the hell they were saying. But
someone here said, what was Bryson's quote?
Yeah, the quote was, I'm sorry, it was mixed in there. The quote was, if I am currently struggling, what I'm currently struggling with is the understanding of the concept. In other words, most tour players that you're around, if it doesn't work fairly immediately, it's useless to them. It's garbage. It's not me, bro. That's not me, bro. So that should tell you something. If you do work with them, you probably have to build up their trust early and save that stuff for later, if indeed it's something that they should focus on and go to. But it's so interesting. He wants to continue down the rabbit hole. Again, if he's struggling, he's truly struggling with the understanding. That's what I got off of my brief interaction with him, my couple days with him. So,
and I think he's when you've probably seen more pressure tracers than anybody.
Yeah. I was
is there any similarity between pressure plate tracers or not?
I'm sorry. Go say that again.
Do you find there's a similarity between tracers?
Yeah. So totally. So
time, everyone, we talk about individuals, how they train, how they swing it, how they, but sometimes there is a commonality between certain players. in certain things they do, even if aesthetically they look different?
So, yes, it's so funny that that kinematically guys are completely different, and then kinetically they're more similar. And people that look similar could be kinetically completely different. So, what I say in speaking engagements are, my advice to them, if I'm getting them in the door with the technology, I probably, whether they buy it or not, I would probably want to know what they all do. And it has to be a list of something they all do. And it's probably a small list. So learn those few points and make sure you teach that to everyone. If they're the best at getting better and they're all showing a tendency, and I'm sure your next question is going to be, what are those things? And I can tell you. But in terms of pressure mapping, what are the things they all do? And let's teach everybody all those things. And then when we see things outside of those things, there's decisions to be made, but maybe that is their thumbprint. That is their signature, right?
So have you ever seen the unusual pressure traces in great players?
There was pressure traces that I thought were unusual when I was brand new. Remember, fast to learn, slow to apply. So I was sitting there going 7-8 years ago, like, well, that's not good, right? And then I quickly go, well, he's a hell of a lot better than I am, right? So how do I know what good is, right? I had an image in my mind of what I wanted to see, and then when it didn't meet with that image, then I didn't think it was good. So have I seen weird pressure traces? Not in terms of the commonalities.
Right.
Yeah, so I see a thumbs up when I said, like, what are those things? So if we're talking vertical pressure, I'll tell you guys, no problem. I've never seen an elite level player that didn't have pressure on their lead side at address. And I've never, even if they didn't, I've never seen a elite level player with speed who didn't push down on the lead side a little bit more to swing the club further back and to swing the club back. I've never seen an elite player have maximum amount of vertical pressure on the trail side at the top of the swing. Usually that happens anywhere from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And then it starts to center of pressure. We start interacting under the lead side to accommodate what will eventually be a center of mass move in that direction. I've never seen
that's an interesting one as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Center of mass and center of pressure using pressure plates.
Yeah.
Because that's you could get that so wrong.
I did. I did. So everybody knows this.
Center of pressure moving what appeared to be right directionally relative to what they want to hit. But you could then have the mass of their body relative to that completely wrong. And they would be difficult to produce any speed.
And both are important, and the distinction between the two are of the utmost importance. And in fact, if there's an instructor that doesn't on here right now that doesn't know the difference, then that's fine. We'll clear it up. I actually insist that my amateur clients understand the difference between center of pressure and center of mass. Now, I might just say weight shift for center of mass, right? Because that's a term they're comfortable with. That's not technical to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's been in the ethos for a long time. And pressure, I might say, pushing down here or something like that. It's interesting. I use this analogy a lot. So Nicholas said you wanted to shift this is from Golf My Way, you wanted to shift your weight to the inside of your right heel at or near the top of the backswing, right? So the funniest thing is there was no question that he was shifting mass back in that direction because the hands, arms, and club have mass to them, and your arms are almost 20% of your body. So there's mass going that side, whether it's, whether you teach a single axis move or some early COM or whatever you do, there's mass moving to that side. So the interesting thing is he said you want to shift your weight to the inside right heel. Well, he was shifting mass, but what he was describing was pressure. He was describing what he was feeling. So the neat thing about teaching with pressure is that you can quantify a player's feeling, right? Because, and I always have heard this, and if you're only doing 2D, which is fine because I do that online and we could talk about that stuff too, you have been told most of your coaching life or golfing life, if there's golfers on here, that feel and real are two different things. When it comes to kinetics, no, they're not. In other words, whether I had a high handicap player or a tour player, when I told them to push down on the trail heel, none of them pushed down on the trail toe. Like none of them, right? Like you could tell them to do that live, right? And when you tell them to push down on the lead side, none of them pushed down on the trail side when I told them to do that, right? As we were doing the biofeedback mode. So it's exactly what they're feeling is what's happening, right? But yeah, if you're trying to, change your backswing in front of a mirror, so you stop, look, change it, and then you got in front of a camera, you were always disappointed. And then we started with feel and real are two different things. I actually think, one, the problem in that is the training. You're not training motion, okay? You're trying to position the club or the body or both throughout the swing. And I would rather pressure the body and move the club throughout the swing. And there's a difference there. In other words, I long since, though I was probably initially trained positionally, how to teach, I am much more in the movement thereof. And there is movements, it goes back to the initial thing. There is movements that all these players are doing to varying degrees that you have to communicate to your players for them to improve.
And I think it's really interesting because there is no doubt somebody who would learn a golf swing through a series of positions would never get to the dynamic speed required by programming it right.
That's me. That's me.
How true this is.
Yeah, that's me. I tried to position. I was told this was the perfect thing. And the funniest thing is the only thing anybody has ever said about my swing is that I have lovely tempo. That's because when I hit it, I can't break an egg. I mean, I can hear the damn thing land, for crying out loud. Yeah, I got beautiful tempo. It doesn't go anywhere, but but that's what happens when you position a club through a swing. And I think I know where you're going with this. I say this a lot in my speaking engagements. I'm not going to disparage this drill because if we get to handle interaction, which I have a feeling we're going to get to as well, we can do everything. But by the way, go watch Scott's that you talked to. I watched all of Scott's. Scott's the man. I spoke after. He's brilliant. I spoke after him at the hack motion thing. Immediately following him, I was like, this is in the U.S. This is like Deshaun Kaiser following up Aaron Rodgers here. He's the wrist angle guy. So, anyways, I think I saw Scott jump on here. He might have jumped off. We bored the hell out of him. But anyways, if you want to know about that, find a way to your conversation with him was amazing about wrist angles. But anyways, in terms of positioning the club, and so there's a drill that from a ground force reaction standpoint, I'm not a fan of. I give the drill. I am not disparaging anyone that gives the drills. We'll just call it the freezers, like swing to the top and stop, right? Okay. So, and you know where I'm going, but